And he's been actively getting signatures. So it's fine if he wins. I have nothing against Mike. But give him a run for his money. Now he's calling up people to get signatures for him.
And that's mine.
So that's one thing. What happened up here?
Oh, all right. Sorry.
Why did we do that? So make sure you start on your evaluation of, keep that running so you don't have to try to remember who said what later on. And anyway, that'll probably come back up there if we're with any luck.
I turned it off because when the speakers, I'm recording.
Get it back to that thing there. Yeah. All right, so, sorry, that was my bad. All right, well, it'll happen. I think what will come up there is the form evaluation form. There's another one of those things that, of course, to the naked eye, you can't tell the difference. It's called the session folder, in which a lot of stuff is. The presentations, mine at least, is there. I'm not sure that Father Justin's is there yet, but most of the things we've gone through that had structured presentations or background information from the first session this morning. There's a lot of background reading that you can go to. So there's that. The other quick thing I wanted to mention, I said a couple things about Father Rentel earlier today, but last night he was very keynote-like. He was rhetorical in many ways, and I thought he did a wonderful job. Originally, I found what he had to say in a YouTube video in which he was it was a sort of an interview of a class from the Rocor Jordanville Seminary. And they asked him to talk about the OCA and autocephaly. Now you can imagine how that audience was, all right? And he was very matter of fact. It was done on his home couch, and he just talked. He talked about a lot of what we talked about last night, but it was a little more direct. So I'm not going to give out the link, as somehow I don't want to do that, but, there's nothing he said that which he's not proud, I'm sure. If you go to YouTube and look for Rentel, autocephaly, and Rocor, was those the three? And it comes up and you see a Zoom thing, a collage of things. It's about an hour. If you're interested in that sort of thing, I took away a lot of notes, and it was as a result of seeing that that I thought, Father Alexander, it would be a good addition. Okay, so it's up to you if you want to go further on that thing. One other, yes.
Relating to that, he's an academic.
Yes.
Way above my head. So I was really happy that this morning, and this is where Facebook is good.
Yeah.
I happened to check Facebook as I was getting ready, and it popped up.
It's
so, you put that on Facebook, right?
Yeah, it's all.
From last night?
Yes.
And you know what? The sound is really good because last night it was kind of hard. The sentences sometimes fell off. Get it all clear. The sound is really good. So I recommend.
Yeah. So there was a number of points that he made last night, but they were, again, a little more flowery language. And this other thing is very matter of fact. And to the point he made last night that has come through very strongly, what would you have had the OCA do? What were the options, and why were any of them better than that? He makes a good point. You can do with that what you want. One other thing, we talked about agency this morning. I think that hopefully this conference, this forum, gives people agency to act within their parish. Now, Helen and Maria are from the Romanian parish, Romanian OCA parish in Fairlawn, and they are now three-time attendees here. And it's always nice to have a little tiny story of things working out well. And I think I'll put words in your mouth, but you can make a comment or two. I think they came the first time and they were able to leave feeling there are things we're allowed to do. There's things that we can, I don't know, agitate is the right word, but we can strongly advocate for in our parish. And they started doing them. And I remember hearing a couple years ago that we finally saw some of these inquirers that everyone's talking about. Now, whether one thing led to another, but...
Yeah, Joe's right. We went back after the first forum, and we were so excited. Kind of lit on fire. That's what I said. You lit me on fire, now I can't do anything. Father, let us start this committee. So we started a committee. We call it Outreach, and we kind of plant our seeds everywhere. This past week, we had a reading of, I don't know if anybody else did this, but we made our pavilion a place where the Declaration of Independence was read. And we invited everyone in our community, and a lot of our parishioners showed. A lot of people in our community came, and we were so happy. And we started that. And then, we've seen some of these people in our community, like in our fish fry. So we are seeing some.
So there's stuff going on, and it doesn't happen by a nothing. Okay, you have to do work, and of course you have to do good work, but that's obvious. Okay, so questions or anything we need to clean up from where we've been? We have the evaluation form. Let me put up here quickly the other one, which is the session folder. I hope I do this right. Yeah, so if you didn't get this one, get that one. I know you're all trying to take a picture of me. Is that right? No. So do that. Anything else? Any miscellaneous commentary that we can actually take a breath and deal with, and then we'll go on to our afternoon session. Okay. So obviously, I think it's very obvious as we study and understand St. Tikhon and his impact on certainly the church in America, that one of the things that he talked a lot about is leadership. And in particular, there was this question of conciliarity subornos, which as I went and looked into the kind of the background of that Russian term, it kind of has a sense of meaning that many opinions are better than one opinion. That's not exactly it, but there's something to that, which led him to work very hard at developing and encouraging, let's say, lay leadership. So this afternoon we're going to talk about some leadership-y topics. Father Justin Patterson will be talking about challenges of developing leaders, which is a challenge. We're all busy, etc., etc. He'll talk about that. Then I'll talk a bit about offering some perspectives on parish councils, which is one of the places, not the only place, that leadership shows up, okay, within the parish. And I think are ways we can do a little better job at parish councils than what we probably normally do. So, Father Justin, let me get hopefully I can figure out how to get it from one to another.
Shift it over.
There's an old, my wife's an attorney. Is that working? No. There it is. Yeah. My wife's an attorney, and she said, you never want to be sentenced after judge has had a lunch. And after this pierogies, you either want to sleep or put me in jail. I don't know. So here we are. It's an honor to be here this afternoon. Let me make sure this works. No? Joe? Oh, sorry. It's an honor to be here this afternoon. Thank you for letting me be a speaker here. 5 challenges for transforming leadership culture in our parish. Let's get going. Okay.
The bottom one is what gets.
Oh, sorry about that. So in our church, rarely do our holy fathers and mothers coddle us. On the contrary, they give us the truth, and the truth is often tough. And so here's some tough truth to get us started. I want to thank Joe for reminding me of this. The most basic task of a church leader is to discern the spiritual gifts of all those under his authority and to encourage those gifts to be used for the benefit of all. St. John Chrysostom, this is not anything radical. In the past, of course, I believe this was theologically important. I think we all believe that theologically. But right now, we're in a moment that not experienced everywhere universally, but certainly a surge which is hitting our parishes with various degrees of intensity. And a good sign, we're here, we're talking about these things, and I'm hearing these stories from so many of you. And this moment is powerful. And we don't have the luxury of having communities where people's gifts go unused, where the priest or the warden or person X is tasked with doing everything, where we are not actively striving to have the healthiest leadership culture, or as Father Daniel prefers, ethos possible. We don't have that luxury anymore. If our leadership culture is not healthy, if it is not optimal, we run the risk that we will fail to meet the growing needs that the priests alone cannot meet. Like, this is a practical problem at this point. We drop the ball in maximizing the impact our parishes can make for the sake of our Lord and His church. We limit the number of hungry people our parishes can feed. We quench the spirit in this moment that has been given for us to be stewards of, missing the great blessing its present surge is offering to our church as a whole. And also, our clergy, if we're not careful, may burn out because they simply can't do it all right now. And that shouldn't surprise us. So this is no longer just theology. This is no longer just something that we understand in a kind of heady way, but it's practical and therapeutic. And to do that, we have to see our parish cultures consider transformation and growth in a new way. The good news is that for once, our theology and our practice align like really clear. The needs and the theology are right there together. And this is an opportunity for us. So the original title of this talk was going to be The 5 Challenges or Pitfalls in Forming Healthy Parishes. The implication was everything is on fire. And what I'm seeing right now and hearing from you is that we have challenges we're aware of, but in many cases our parishes, Joe said, you fix the roof when the sun is out. The sun's kind of out right now. Things aren't on fire. But we have this moment to kind of recalibrate, retool, and focus. And I think I'd like to shift it a little bit and call it 5 opportunities for transforming the leadership culture of our parish. And St. Paul says in his letter to the Corinthians that we are called to be co-laborers or co-workers or synergists with the Lord. And we have it in our power to use our minds and hearts to transform how we relate to each other as leaders and transform how we relate to our people. So, in other words, not only can we grow as leaders, we must grow as leaders, and that's why we're all here. So, opportunity number 1. We have I picked out, there was like 8 of them I really liked. I picked out 5 to share today. Number 1 is craft a culture of trust. And when you look at the literature, trust is number 1 in all these things. But wait, aren't our churches already all places of trust? Ostensibly, that would be true, but it depends on what you mean by trust. What do you mean by that? Well, I trust this guy. What does that mean? I trust that he will always do what Rasputin always does. I can predict what he's going to do because it's him. There's a guy I like to follow called Patrick Lencioni. He's a leadership church guy. Very interesting. He's Catholic. But he calls this predictive trust. We can know somebody. We can predict and imagine what they're going to do. And we might even be able to work with them because we know their quirks and we know how they operate. And it might not be very good, but we can know these people. I trust that Father Jimmy will show up to parish council and be totally unprepared and checked out. I can trust Sally will arrive to the book study not having read one single word in the book. I can trust that young Bobby Demetrius will say something crazy to a parishioner at fellowship hour. I can predict these things. I trust these people in the sense that I know who they are, and they're part of my ecosystem, and that is that. We're not looking for predictive trust here. When we talk about trust, we're talking about something different. We're talking about vulnerability, being vulnerable with each other in a specific way. And if we look at our parish cultures, lack of vulnerability can take lots of forms in our parish. It can be the priest who has to appear totally with it and to be in charge, even when he's feeling out of his depth about running a meeting or doing some task. He can really be lost, but he has to kind of fake it and pretend and act like he's in charge. Or the council that feels it has to show its competence by over-managing something and not relying on other people, or by punishing the priest or pushing him down. We've seen these things happen in our parishes. There are also legitimate fears and concerns that might not be aired because of the bigger fear of kind of showing our cards. And so rather than being vulnerable, we pull back to save face and to appear strong. And so what happens? We pretend everything is great. The Pochumkin village story, you know that story. Pretending everything is good as the empress drives through town. We posture, we pretend in that way as well. We cover up mistakes. We make the same mistakes over and over again. And the challenge then is, how do we craft a culture of trust? And I remember I had a priest I was close to, and he was telling the story of going to have you heard of a low ropes course? You go to a low ropes course, it's like a leadership thing. And he was with the youth group. And I watched this happen, actually. And he was told to stand on this platform and fall back into the arms of the youth. And he actually had a panic attack and started crying because I can't trust what happened. And the point of this is we have to learn to trust people, and that's a point of vulnerability. But as leaders, we have to model transparency and vulnerability for all. We have to be able to, that means confessing our leadership shortcomings and missteps, trying not to be defensive about our weaknesses, recognizing that we don't know things and that is okay. And maybe even with respect, celebrating the fact that I don't know this. I'm not an expert on this. I can't tell you this. As Father Stephen said, I don't know. We also model transparency and vulnerability as priests by seeking expertise of our council, senior clergy. We're talking about mentorship, how important mentorship is for healthy clergy. Respecting trained choir directors. If you have a trained director, listen to that person. He or she knows what they're doing. Other dedicated professionals who've been doing this a long time in the church, listen to them as priests. Recognizing and embracing that ordination does not confer instant knowledge or wisdom about a variety of topics. Rather, we have to understand leadership can be learned, and we can grow as leaders and be cultivated. In my diocese, actually in the South, they now have a program for anyone that's becoming kind of a leader in the diocese. They give them leadership coaching, and they make them do this now. And you can see a difference in some of the things that are beginning to happen. So crafting a culture of trust means that everyone in our team is willing to be vulnerable and true. One can't have meaningful human relationships without vulnerability. In fact, friendship can't exist. Real friendship depends upon this vulnerability. And in a parish, we're not all buddies, but we have to have that sense of we're true with each other, and we're open with each other, and we're learning from each other, and that means I can't hide my true self from my people, and they can't hide it from me. Okay, number 2. Lean into healthy conflict. This is somewhat counterintuitive to us. And we often have conflict in our parish, but many of our clergy, myself included, are by nature conflict avoidant. And the reason for this is obvious. We want to be the good guy. We want to be the ones who are nice. And in fact, most of us are in church because we really care about the gospel. We care about loving God and being part of that community. And so we want to be good. But unfortunately, we pursue fake or artificial harmony, rather than authentic relationship. And we also find ourselves sometimes forcing consensus. I remember when I was a younger priest, I bragged to an older priest that in my parish, we did everything by consensus. And that person, the priest actually corrected me and said, you realize when you do that, you're forcing those who disagree with the general direction of where everyone's going to be quiet and to not speak their mind, to not vote or to express their views. And so we've had to really work against that model and be very clear that everyone has a voice here and we actually have to hear. But you can't have that if you don't have trust. That's why trust is first. Trust is first, and conflict, healthy conflict will follow if there's trust. So, what are the results of being conflict avoidant? What are some of the problems that we find in parishes? We stifle real debate because it makes us uncomfortable. We don't discuss the important things like a failing ministry or a divisive person that might need to be talked to. And so these discussions will happen, but they will move outside to the parking lot or wherever, where those things can fester and become less healthy. We fool ourselves into thinking that someone's silence is agreement. I actually had a situation recently where we had to move fast in the mission council for our mission, and a woman in the community was upset about something. And I looked at her face. I knew she wasn't happy, but I didn't have time to stop, and I kept going. And sure enough, about 2 months later, it all came bubbling out. Because we didn't stop to say, hey, what is on your mind? What's going on? And I assumed in the moment that her silence was agreement, and I was mistaken. We're also afraid of the friction that must be the hallmark of a good team. There's friction in a healthy parish council. There's friction in a ministry team. There's friction when you have priests and laity working together, and that's okay. It's necessary. So how do we do better? How do we lean into conflict as church? Well, we can frame disagreements and conflicts as a shared effort to build the parish. This is true. The priest or ministry leader can encourage healthy conflict by asking for debate or serious discussion. And this request by us is actually really important because it signals we're open to this. We want this kind of conflict, and we're not scared of it. The leader, sensing silence, can intentionally ask questions of those who are on the margin. So you can say, "Hey, what do you think, Father Andrew? You look like you're not tracking. What do you think, Susie? What do you think about this question? Tell us what your thoughts are, or what a different perspective might be." Anyway, sorry. Final thought about after the necessary conflict. This is actually an important point in a lot of the leadership material. It's really interesting. Is when you have conflict, you can't let it end there. You have to, having talked through the issues at hand, you gather the council, you gather your people together, the ministry team, whatever it is, and all right, we've talked about this, we debated this. As leader, I would like to go this direction. Having heard this, what do you all think? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, great. Are you on board? Yes. But it's really important that we as leaders ask that question. Are you with me on this? Do I have your support even though you disagree about some part of it? Are we on the same page now? And when you do that, it kind of seals the deal and brings everybody along together, and it resolves that conflict, and we can truly call it healthy once you put that coda on it. So that's an important point to make. Okay, up to number 3, pass off the keys. Now, there's a lot of ways of framing this, like delegate, and that's all good, but I like this image of passing off the keys because it is a visual sign of what we're trying to do across the board in the church, and I think this is the most important thought I have today. There's a wonderful lady in my parish who for years loved to make the coffee, and she'd come in early every Sunday, make the coffee. It wasn't very good. But she made the coffee, and it was her thing to do. And then for like 3 Sundays in a row, she was sick. And guess what? There was no coffee. And no one knew how to make it because she never taught anybody else. It was her thing. And we had to have a come to Jesus meeting about, we have to have this as part of the regular team prep. And we did. But here she was. She wasn't willing to pass off those keys. She wanted to hold on to it because there was something there. And we cling to them mightily. We don't delegate for a number of reasons. Maybe we're afraid of things being done poorly, quality control questions, a fear of losing control, actual control over things. We're afraid a new person might take the project in a new direction that I don't like, or maybe I just don't know and I'm timid about it. I fear that I might be displaced or unneeded by this new person I'm passing the key off to. I fear that I might invest time in this transition, but when things fall apart, I'm holding the bag. And I think that these are all, some of these fears are really legitimate. Some of them are just about me. But all of these we can relate to in some sense. And we see this play out in parish life, don't we? All the time. And this is part of why keys don't get passed off. Another reason we cling to the keys is that we as leaders know that delegating and training a successor or assistant to whom we might give the keys takes a lot of time and sustained effort. And it requires also some organizational skill and planning, and that's more effort and more work. And it requires some kind of trust. And if we don't trust the person for various reasons, we hesitate. And so all of this kind of builds up. And again, it also shows if we don't have trust in our communities, if we're not okay with some conflicts, it makes this a lot harder to do. So this is part of why this is 3 is we can't do this well until we're already doing the other work as well. So, and of course, not every effort to pass off the keys will work. And we have to accept the reality. That's just human life sometimes. And there are times, I knew a priest who trained a second priest. He wanted there for a long time. It was good. And then within a year and a half, the second priest was called away. And then you're like, wait a second, why did I do all that work? But it's hard. This is part of the calling of being Christians in the church. But if we don't pass off the keys, we don't get the help and the relief that we need, we don't follow St. John's advice about people's gifts being used, that quote right there, we miss that. We don't raise up a new generation of leaders that our community needs. One of the great kind of moments in American history was when Roosevelt died in 1945, I think early 45 he died. And when Truman was made president, he had no idea about the bomb, about any of the military secrets of the USA. He basically never saw the president, and it was like you brought a new guy in who knew nothing. And so they had to teach him and bring him up to speed. It took weeks. We don't want to do that in our parishes. We want to have leaders ready to go who can help us in the work of the church. If we don't pass off the keys, we find burnout and isolation and all that kind of judgmentalism, all that kind of stuff, that church stuff you get when people aren't able to say, I'm sharing this ministry, I'm passing these keys off to someone else. Some additional considerations on why keys aren't passed off. Potential leaders might not like our poor leadership ethos. We might be bad leaders. Our meetings might be really long and bad. And there's like a Bataan Death March thing. If we have bad meetings, who wants to come to those meetings? So we have to think about that. Is our leadership visibly frozen? I mean, America's a gerontocracy right now. That's a good example, actually, of what our parish councils and our teams of leaders can be. We get frozen and stuck, and who wants to really take that off of our plate when we're not willing to share that? Or why would they want to be part of that? Our meetings or gatherings known to be super passionate, kind of scary, in your face, loud. There was a women's group when I became priest in my parish that was a bunch of ladies that fought all the time. And my wife went to the meeting and said, I never want to go there ever again. It was a disaster. And so, think about this, though. Would you want to join this group? Why would you want to join it? Is there a culture of gossip or divisiveness that comes from poor leadership? Are they just signing their entire life away? Sometimes we pass off something to somebody and we wipe our hands and it's theirs forever. We throw the key at them and that's it. That scares a lot of people. Is there room for some creativity, or will they be micromanaged by somebody all the time? Who wants to be micromanaged? This is why our leadership now must be both competent and churchly. This is important. Our leadership in our parishes, parish council, priests, ministries, we have to both be competent but also be very mindful of churchliness, because we need both of these things to be able to really do the work of the church and then to invite others into that work as well. Disorganization and disarray are powerful disincentives for someone serving alongside of us in our parishes. So, passing off the keys, we have to always be able to ask, how do I replace myself? And I tell my ministry people that, how do you replace yourself in the next 2 years? What's your plan? Because honestly, most people don't last longer than 3 or 4 years. They get tired. How do you replace yourself? How do you pass off the keys? Do you have an assistant plan? Do you have this plan? How do I decrease that he might increase? That's always a good model. The John the Baptist model of leadership. He's there, he's doing his thing, but with the goal of laying it aside. So, option number 4, run towards accountability. One great thing about Orthodoxy is that we don't see ourselves as morally perfect. So I was telling some of you, my son and I took a road trip across America, and we went all across 3 weeks plus. And one of the places we stopped was in Salt Lake City. And we took the tour they have a museum there, we took the tour. And the shocking thing for my son, the end of it, he asked the lady, he said, so what do you have to do to be a Mormon in good standing to go to the temple? Because you have to have a recommendation to go. She said, well, 15 things. And the last, she went through them. And the last is you have to be able to say that you are morally upright and you are worthy. And my son looked at me and said, oh, Dad, that's not like Orthodoxy. I'm like, Dad, you're right. But the beautiful thing about Orthodoxy is we have that sense we're not really worthy. And that's good. We're not very judgy. We're aware of our weaknesses. But the downside of our internalized non-judgmentalism is that we're often very uncomfortable with a level of accountability that we need in a healthy parish culture. Because, well, I'm not that great, so who am I to make you rise up to this level, because that's not our way as Orthodox Christians. Mormons are really good at that. For all their faults, they're good at that. We're often terrified of being critical or receiving criticism ourselves. We don't want to offend our brethren. We don't want to lose volunteers. We don't want to risk upsetting the apple cart. We say it's not my place to offer correction. Who am I to judge? That's for the priest, or that's for the parish warden, or the dean, or the bishop, or God himself will be the judge. I've heard all of these things before, and I've said some of these things myself. But what are the results of our non-accountability? Poor ministry continues year after year. Reliable volunteers burn out, while unreliable ones stick around and dominate the life of the parish. Standards disappear over time and things fall into a rut. Conscientious people check out of the room and maybe out of the parish life as well. Small frustrations that are often unspoken become major resentments over time. By the way, you see this in marriages and friendships as well. This is like classic stuff. People begin talking about one another rather than to one another. Right? This is a major point problem we see when you don't have accountability. So how do we do better with being accountable, especially as leaders? Priests, laity, doesn't matter. Well, we normalize gentle correction. It should be okay to say, all right, Susan, you got to chant differently. That's not going to work. We model asking for constructive criticism as leaders, and that's hard for a lot of the priests. Hey, what worked in my sermon this Sunday? What didn't? That's very vulnerable. What was challenging about the vacation church school? How did our planning for this project go or not go? What do you think? And that really is a risk that we have to take. We praise the idea of accountability publicly as part of this strategy. We're going to make sure we're talking about accountability as a value for our community. And we make expectations explicit. We're even trying to do things like writing out job descriptions for different ministries. My second priest is really good at that kind of stuff, and he's better than me. So he's taking the lead on that, and I'm supporting him as he does that. Trying to review ministries internally every year. And we're teaching that accountability is an act of love, not one of threatening, but one of love and care for our people and for ourselves. We often think that questions of compliance, Father Rentel talked about this I added this in this morning, these are bureaucratic and technical questions. But compliance is about accountability and obedience. So much of this is just being obedient to the life of the church and being accountable before God, about loving each other honestly and caring for our community well. Not poorly, but well. We're not called to be judgy. We are called to keep each other accountable. And leaders have both the responsibility and the opportunity to model accountability consistently and loudly. And so we get to a final point that I think is really important. Option number 5, becoming stewards of the mission. And this means at least 3 things. That you have to know the mission. What is the mission? You have to be able to own the mission. It's yours. you have to be able to communicate the mission and communicate it often. The big mistake we make, and we've danced around this point a lot in this conference, is in America, we're consumers of religion. We consume Orthodox content. We go on YouTube, we listen to things, we read things, we just take stuff in. But the goal that we should have is moving our people from consumers to being stakeholders and stewards and participants. It's a change in language. We're moving from consuming toward owning and being shareholders in something. So what does it mean to know the mission? What is your parish value? What does it do? What's its focus? And I'll give you an example of my parish. I can talk about my parish. We have 4 things we value. I look online, and there's parishes have wonderful statements about what they do, their mission, their values. In my parish, we can say we're about Orthodox worship, worshiping God in the Orthodox manner. And that includes, of course, like orthodoxy. That includes the fact that we're centered around services and worship. We talk about we engage in Christian fellowship. We care a lot about community building, about being together. Some of the issues we talked about, supporting each other's faith, requires that family of God to support that well. We talk about lifelong education and formation, Christian formation, which not only is Sunday school and that kind of thing, but even more importantly, ongoing learning. We've heard a lot about that at this conference. And then service and outreach, being able to talk about how we serve the community, serve other people, and then reach out by planning missions and reaching out to those who have various needs. This is kind of the DNA of our parish, and every parish is a little different, but everyone knows about these points. You can talk about them. And so to know it is step 1. Then you have to own the mission. It means you both know it and commit to it, and it becomes part of us. Space has been made for these people to be part of the mission, not just formally, but with their time and leadership. They're invited into that circle of action. And Father Fraze talked about how important it is. Catechumens, join in. That's a good idea. I'm going to start doing that. Join this. Passing, it's not unlike passing off the keys. Here's the keys. Be part of this life together. What does it mean to communicate the mission? Well, Lencioni says that one of the most important roles of leaders in church is that they become chief reminding officers. And I tell you something, as priest, I think 1/3 of my job is just reminding people, oh, we have this wonderful feast coming. Here's why it's important. Let's talk about that for just a moment. And here's an email about it. And there's a link over here, and the bulletin says it. And in Sunday school, they're going to talk about it. In the men's group, they're going to talk about it as well. All these things and I'm helping to remind the reminders. But they're all reminding everyone, too, about what's happening, what's going on. And that's not surprising. Orthodoxy does repetition really, really well, again and again and again. Let us pray the Lord. And so, I think we always want to make sure that we're communicating, we as leaders, but also we're helping other leaders communicate things in as many ways as possible. There's an old saying, you want to communicate good things 6 different ways in a church. So, there's a fact, people don't care about a committee or about stacking chairs or about making pierogies, but they will care about a mission. And the ladies that made that food cared about this parish and about the work that's being done here and the fact that this parish is open and bringing people into knowledge of God and relationship with God and with each other. That's why they made those wonderful pierogies today. And that's why people will clean today after this gathering, and while there'll be food on Sunday after the liturgy, because that vision is there, that mission is there. They'll sacrifice and work hard for the broader mission of a community. And that vision gives meaning to ordinary work. We paint the walls, we stack the chairs, because we believe in and own and can talk about that mission and vision that drives everything in the church. Money, by the way, always follows mission. You want to raise money? Talk about the mission of the church. Talk about what it's doing, why you're here. If you don't have a list of things that you value as a community that kind of guides everything, that is the standard for all your activities, do that as a community. Make that list. Use the Father Stephen Fraze's make a buck thing, that tool. What do we value? What's important to us? Why does our church do what it does? And then we can measure everything we do based upon those standards. They can guide us. And then every ministry becomes part of the kingdom of God. So how do we do better in ourselves, being stewards of the mission, inviting others into stewardship? We repeat why the parish exists. For me, it's these things. We also might begin our parish council meetings by revisiting these things too. We often start with the money or the budget, but maybe we start with the vision and the mission. We intentionally tie every ministry back to the broader mission of our church, what we're called to do. We make every annual budget a theological statement about our priorities and about our vision as a community. It's all there, and you talk about the budget that way. Why we're raising so-and-so's salary? Why? Because we value beautiful church music, because we're about Orthodox worship. Oh, we're gonna fund this trip for the kids to go to the monastery. That's because we value lifelong formation. We're gonna buy this Bible study books for the adults. We value adult education. That's part of our vision. We're gonna fund the homeless shelter. Yeah, we care about outreach and service. All these things kind of flow from the center. And we can talk about even the money that way, which is exciting. We're going to build a new temple. Why? Because we want to be able to welcome more people and show them the glory of God right here in our town. So we repeat our vision, our mission constantly in sermons, newsletters, parish meetings, ministry gatherings, chief reminding officers. That's what we're called to do. We're all the synergists with Christ in this effort of building up the body of Christ. So as we kind of conclude, let's think about crafting a culture of trust with vulnerability. Let's look at leaning into healthy conflict as a major step in transforming our leadership culture. Let's talk about passing off the keys as a reminder we're always called to mentor and raise up new leaders in the parish. Let's embrace accountability. Let's talk about that and do that in our parishes. And let's become not merely consumers, but stewards of the mission God has given us. We're all called to do these things. And it's exciting to be part of parishes where this is happening. And may God give us all the strength to keep going. Thank you all.
Father, question?
Yeah.
So with the ever-changing demographics of our parishes, i.e. more people coming, more coming in all the time.
Yeah.
Do you have a thought on how long people need to, should we say, be in the church before they can take on a leadership role?
It totally depends. Honestly, I think anyone can be involved in ministry when they're around the catechumens, and should be. But leadership is a whole other question. And I would be very careful with that. I think most people in the parish should be leaders. But the question of timing and all of that, I think it depends on a lot of factors. Joe, did you want to?
Take another question.
Father
Switch
Daniel.
to the other PowerPoint.
I think one of the challenges or realities of this is, for better or for worse, if the priest is not setting this and putting it, it's impossible really for it. I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, but it has to. The vision has to be set by the priest, and if the priest is not up to that task, because seminary does not
Equip you for this stuff.
Seminary does not equip you to actually run a parish.
No. Well, and step one is saying I don't know how to run a parish. Please help me.
So the developing of the mentorship, the practical realities of running a parish, it's not going to teach a class, it's not.
Right.
And then being able to then become a leader and actually make that vision happen in a parish,
right.
You're talking 5, 10, 15 years of slowly, surely transforming a parish culture.
Right.
Maybe.
Absolutely. I can't disagree with the word you just said.
Because otherwise, it will end up with what you were saying. That it will be burnout, isolation, fragmentation.
I think even healthy parishes have experienced pieces. I mean, my parish I think is pretty healthy, but we don't hit all this perfectly. And in fact, when I was preparing for all this over the last couple of weeks, I was convicted about a couple of things. Like, wow, I've let that slide. I don't talk about the vision the way I used to. Because when I was younger, I know I had to. And now it's like things are a little easier. I can, and then my wife tells me, "Oh, you talk a lot." I do, but I want to tell. But I got to repeat. I'm the chief reminding officer, and I think lay people can play that role in their spheres in the parish, and certainly encourage the priest. But you're right. If the priest, there's this idea. One of my old mentor priests said the priest is like a ceiling. Like if he's here, everyone else that's trying to go, he creates this barrier. And so his job is almost to get out of the way and let the parish thrive. But he has to know that. That takes some kind of sense to know, I got to step aside so that Joe can do more, or so that Sally can do more. Yeah.
Just a follow-up. The reference you're making to Patrick
Lencioni?
What is his story? I think I know.
He's great.
Is it like our?
He has a book called Adaptability that's really good. I drew a couple points from there, and he has another one. I forget.
5 dysfunctions.
5 dysfunctions of a team. And 2 of the dysfunctions I shared were from that.
I think he has a program too that I actually worked